Hello and welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, we talk to YouTuber Man v Film and his relationship with physical media and streaming sites. A massive thank you to Graham for joining us today and congratulations on hitting 6,000 subscribers. Check out his channel in the description.
How and when did you first discover your passion for film, really?
It's always been there ever since I was a kid. My fondest memories, my earliest memories are sitting in front of the TV, ignoring real life and getting lost in make-believe, movies, videos, films, TV, whatever kind of media I could get my hands on, I consumed, much to the detriment of my social life, but that was my choice.
Out of interest, what was your first, you mentioned there's lots of different things, your first memory. What was the first sort of film or moment that you had where you were like, okay, I really like this? Like, what was the first show or film?
One of the earliest memories I have, I can't say it was it may be a big influence, was I was a child, maybe 4 years old, and I repeatedly, and this isn't advised nowadays, I repeatedly watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre at that age. Now, obviously, it had an effect because I love horror now. That's my main genre. But I was told that whenever it was turned off, I would pretty much start crying, throw a fit, unless I got to watch it all. So that's obviously had a big effect on me. As for just general movie moments, discovering such things like The Goonies, and just the sheer joy that those kind of movies have, just those kind of feelings are just ingrained within myself. The kind of 80s movies that you just somehow you discover in the cinema. Sometimes you discover just on TV by accident, or back when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of satellite TVs and that, so it was just whatever appeared on terrestrial TV. And you would just discover these weird and fantastic movies.
So clearly, I'd say it's fair to say you're a collector of DVDs, physical media. Why?
Yes.
Why do you like collecting them so much?
Again, this is something I've always really done. And when I stand back and look at myself and try to figure out why I do it, I think it's going back to the days of video shops, where I used to consume a lot of media. You go down there, you would see how it was all laid out, and it was just all these wondrous different covers and fantastic artwork that you would get back then. Nothing was actually representative of the movie. It was just cool artwork. And being able to walk into my office and go through these movies, just look through them, see the spines, see the memories that they bring back, having that tangibility of being able to take something out and hold it and look at it, it's a wonderful feeling. And I think there's lots of people like myself that love that collecting. And although it can be pricey, I've something I've always done, from VHS to laser discs to DVDs to Blu-rays to 4Ks. I keep wondering when it's going to stop, but it never does.
No, I'm with you on that. Do you find that when it comes to buying physical media, that you might actually buy things that you don't necessarily like, but you might think either kind of just looks good as part of a collection, or it's, just so you have it in case one day perhaps then you can't get it?
Quite often, I'd say probably 95% of my purchases are movies I've never seen. And quite often it's things that I've never heard of. Now, I like collections, so whether it be Masters of Cinema or 88 Films Italian collection, I like them because you get an idea of what kind of movie you're going to get. And over time, you build up a trust with a company. I know what I'm going to get with Masters of Cinema. It's going to be something world cinema or silent or any kind of genre that's going to be relevant to Masters of Cinema. If I go to the Italian collection, I'm going to get something schlocky from the 60s to the mid-90s Italian movies that's going to be all gory and fun and violent and unusual. So I think there is times that I'll buy movies that I don't particularly like the look of, but quite often I'll discover something that's just wonderful about it that I didn't realize was my kind of thing. Like, say, in the Masters of Cinema, I watched Harakiri last year, and that just blew me away. And that's not a movie I would have went and picked, but because it was in that collection, it opened up a door and let me into those kind of movies.
You mentioned being in a video store and the Laserdisc and stuff. Do you find yourself, if you buy it once on DVD and then it's released or remastered, say on 4K or even just Blu-ray, do you re-buy that in the same, do you like re-buy it in a newer thing? And then with the old one, would you then get rid of it or keep it as well?
Depends on the movie. From VHS to DVD, there was a huge jump. From DVD to Blu-ray, there was another huge jump. From Blu-ray to 4K, there isn't as much. So I have bought films several times. There are always going to be movies that I love that I want in the best possible format, but I won't upgrade everything. There's certain movies that I like that are fine on DVD, and I'm happy with that. There's movies on Blu-ray that I'm fine and happy with. There's the movies, the ones that I find cause me problems are the movies that I deeply, deeply love. And two, for instance, will be The Thing or Evil Dead. You know, I have way too many copies of that already, and I don't get rid of them because I love those movies. And I think I've got 7 or 8 copies of Evil Dead just now, and I know I've got 5 copies of The Thing. And it's just because those movies are ones that I deeply love, I will buy. And when they come out in 4K, I'm going to do it again, spend more money on the same product.
Do you think, because obviously, I mean, streaming's really taken off in the last couple of years, especially. Do you think perhaps it's maybe, I mean, it's only opinion, but do you think maybe it's just a matter of time until your DVDs, your Blu-rays, etc., either stop completely, or, you know, streaming's such a big thing now. So again, in terms of, I'm sure like you, obviously I've got my DVDs as well. I feel like buying them now is maybe fairly important, because maybe a few years down the line with streaming, it's going to become a thing of the past.
Yes, I often have that argument with myself over streaming and physical media, and I think the problem is now, as opposed to maybe 3-4 years ago, is you had Netflix. You know, you had one streaming service and that kind of had everything, and that was good. But now it's becoming so fragmented that you're having to spend lots of money to become members of all these streaming services, and that's just unrealistic. I was looking at Netflix the other day, and I just fancied something, an older movie. So I was looking for anything from the 40s or before, nothing at all. And then I started going through just looking at every title they had, and they had very little up until, say, the 70s. And even then, most of their movies are newer movies. And I kind of like older films myself and discovering ones that I've missed out on. So these streaming services, while good for consumable entertainment, very rarely do you find something that's really great, you know, like Lost cinema. It's just populist and blockbuster kind of movies and the same repetitive spin cycle that you get. And I do think that streaming is doing well because it's easy. It's easy and consumable, and you don't have to look for things. There's been times where I've put on a movie because I can't be bothered walking through here and getting it out, you know, just sheer laziness and things like that. But I want to have the physical disc. I want to know that I can watch that movie whenever I want. The discs have more options on them as well. You know, I've got various audio tracks, I've got commentaries, I've got extras, even supplemental material like posters and things like that. Physical media for me is the thing that really people who love a movie can give it the treatment it deserves. You know, whereas streaming, it's just put on there. Sometimes it's good quality, sometimes it's not, but it's just kind of bare bones.
What's your favourite way to watch a movie? Out of curiosity. I mean, if you know you're going to watch film, do you go through your DVD collection, or do you go straight on to like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime?
No, I like to go to the collection. I for the longest while would just buy a lot of movies, which I've kind of changed since the start of 2020. But what I do is if I buy a movie, I put it in the collection, I keep it sealed so I know that I've not watched it. And I'll just come through and I'll just kind of go like, yeah, this one tonight, pull it out, throw it on. That's the way I kind of choose movies at the moment. Very much, most of my watches, I think about 80% this year so far has been discs.
Are you, I mean, obviously you've got your collection there, but are you a fan of streaming? And we've kind of touched on like Netflix, I guess, obviously you've subscribed to that, but like Amazon as well and Disney Plus, things like that. Are you, I guess, in touch with all of that as well?
Yes, I have Netflix, I have Amazon Prime, and I have Disney. Now, Netflix is kind of the go-to one, and that's probably the one I watch most, but I like most of their original material that they make, the series, and I have a quick look through at the movies and things that are on there. Amazon Prime, it was a kind of benefit to having that because I wanted the delivery, and it just comes free with that package. Disney Plus, I actually got a free subscription to that for a year from a friend, and to be honest, I've watched The Simpsons. That's it. And until recently, I watched WandaVision, but other than that, there's nothing that interests me on Disney. So streaming is something that I will go to for quick consumable movies that I may have on in the background when I'm doing some other work or things like that. But if I'm wanting something to sit down, focus, and take my attention, it's a disc.
We've mentioned that the digital thing is probably going to make DVDs and Blu-rays useless one day. But do you think it's good that for people that make movies, do you think it's good that their films are a lot more accessible and are a lot easier for people to find and watch?
I don't, because I feel that there's that much content on these things that your movie can easily be lost. You know, if somebody's actually picked up a disc, they've put down money, they've paid hard cash for something, they're probably going to sit down and give it the attention it deserves. You stumble across something on Amazon or Netflix, quite often you could watch 5 minutes of it, something will distract you, you'll stop it, and you might just never go back to it. You don't, I find when you're watching streaming services, you don't really give the attention due to a lot of things. Because it is so consumable.
What are some of your favourite films that you have in your collection that you wouldn't find on the streaming services?
Let's see, I have lots of 40s noir movies that I really do love, and you'll get the big hitters on the services, you know, the Double Indemnity, the Lady from Shanghai, things like that, but you won't get some of the smaller movies on there. I recently picked up Indicators noir box sets, and those titles you just can't find on any kind of streaming services. Lots of movies from the 70s and kind of things that are really fun. Even big movies like, I say a big movie, Tremors, you know, that's not available on streaming, but I just got the recent disc for that. Lots of Italian horror movies are really kind of things that I love. Now, you can find them on some streaming services, but they're atrocious. The dubbing, it's got bad dubbing, it's got pixelated images, the quality's not there for them. Like I said, if you go to streaming, you're looking for big movies, but if you like the kind of smaller movies, you're not going to find them on there. If I want a Randolph Scott Western, I'm not going to find that in any streaming service. It's just not going to be there. But I can go to my collection and pull one from a dozen.
I just want to ask a general question, actually. You're doing YouTube for quite a while now, and you've built up quite a big following, I think. And I think the community you're in is quite a loyal community in terms of to the sort of the hardware. Do you think that in the time you've been doing YouTube, have you seen that the community is becoming less involved with DVDs and Blu-rays and is slowly going towards streaming?
No, unfortunately, what I see is the opposite. I see people more interested on just having discs. I think that's what they're going towards. I don't see them actually consuming the material on the disc. They seem more intent with, look what I've bought or got. I've got this disc that looks great. I've got this disc that looks great. But you never hear of anybody actually watching the movies. And I feel like a lot of the collectors these days are simply collectors. You know, and if you're throwing money for a piece of plastic to sit on a shelf, that seems just completely crazy to me, which is part of why I made a positive change in my collecting habits back in 2020, where I made the decision that if I bought something, I had to watch it pretty much as soon as I could. That way I'm getting value for my money. I'm gaining watching something new, and it's only going to curb overspending. You know, why buy something if you're not actually going to use it, which I used to do. And I see this kind of happening all the time on YouTube with people just gathering stuff, but not actually using it. You know, it just seems crazy for me. But I think that's more what they're doing. There are some people leaning towards streaming, but I think it seems to be the more kind of typical things, like WandaVision is the big thing now because it's Marvel. And I think a lot of people like these kind of things. I like Marvel as well, but they kind of go for that because you feel as if you're going to get views and fans and subscribers because of that. But ultimately, everybody's doing it. So you're one of 1,000, 1 million people that's reviewed WandaVision. Are you going to stand out?
Quickly, if I may, I watched one of your videos on your channel earlier where you sort of go through what it is you have and you sort of do a tour, and you picked out Hard Times with Charles Bronson, who's one of my favourite actors. Is he one of yours? Is he a go-to for you?
Yes, I love Bronson. There's something about his just stony-faced, stoic manner, and yet he seems to be able to do so much with it as well. You know, where he leans into a little bit of comedy in certain movies. There's certain movies like 10 to Midnight, which is basically a kind of slasher Bronson movie, but there's this whole subplot with him like reconnecting with his daughter type thing, and it's to see this guy who you just kind of see as one facial expression kind of move through these different emotive scenes. It's just wonderful. I think he's great. He can be the hard man, and he can be the hard man that's a little bit soft.
Do you have a go-to actor? I mean, someone that if you see they're in a film, you'll immediately go out of your way to watch it?
No, I don't think there's anybody particular that I go, I need to see that because they're in it. More often than not, it's the filmmaker behind it that would interest me, the director. If I looked at a movie and I saw Lucio Fulci directed it, I'd be like, oh, I need to see that, you know, kind of wondering what that would be. But it's more the director I kind of lean towards rather than the star.
Well, when it comes to your collection, how on earth do you organise it? Because it seems like there's a lot there. It's quite a predicament, really.
Yeah, and there's more here. as well, which is my collection is it's getting to the point where it's almost the dam's about to break. So at the moment, I've got my Masters of Cinema, and below that I've got Arrow. To my side here, I've got Indicator and Vinegar Syndrome. In my living room, I've got 88 films, Criterion in 4K. And behind these ones here is another row of movies. So they're double backed into just studio releases. And if they're in a numerical form, they go 1 to whatever. And if they're not, they go in alphabetized form.
You ever counted to see how many you have?
I've taken rough guesses. And I think Blu-rays, there must be just over 2,000, I think.
Wow.
And DVDs, I think I've got about 2,500. But that's been collecting for a number of years.
This is the last question. Would you rather watch your own collections of film, or would you rather stay to streaming forever?
Physical media. I'd rather go to there's a much more varied range of movies within my collection than there is on streaming. And I think there's more enjoyment to be had from the collection that I've got. You know, I've got movies ranging from 1900 up to 2020. I've got every genre under the sun. There's something for whatever mood I'm in, something to really entertain me regardless. And there's movies here that I've still not watched that I know are going to be new favourites of mine when I get to them at some point.
Do you find as well, so when it comes to your collection, kind of what you like to watch in terms of, I guess, like your friendship circles, your family, is it quite a unique taste you find that you have, or kind of the people you mix with, are they all of the same kind of tastes?
No, one of the main reasons I started YouTube was there was pretty much nobody that I knew that really enjoyed movies or the range of movies that I did. I had nobody to really connect with. So starting a YouTube channel wasn't oh, I'm going to be Insta famous and never have to work again. It was more, I'm going to meet people who are like-minded, who love movies, want to talk about them. And I found that, and the circles that I have online are terrific. Even on my channel, there's people who come and they'll drop comments, and they're so knowledgeable about certain aspects of movies, and they'll give me recommendations, and you get to trust these people and try out these new movies simply because you've built up that level of trust with them. But I'm glad to have started YouTube to get these kind of people, these friends and colleagues on there as well. But within my real life, there is nobody that I know that collects movies, that is into the movies that I know, and that's including my wife. She hates them. And you guys, I take it you're a big film fan yourselves, yes?
Yes. Well, I mean, we both are. I guess our tastes are different. I'm into my westerns, my 60s films.
Right.
My favorite film is The Alamo by John Wayne. What that says about my taste, I don't know. It's up to you.
It's all good.
And I guess
I just watched Shane for the first time yesterday. And
really? What do you think?
I thought that was amazing right from the start. Really? Yeah, I loved it. There was a moment where Alan Ladd goes into the bar. Have you seen it? Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes into the bar to get a bottle of pop for his new friend. And the sheer anxiety I was feeling all the way through that scene, because I'm like, I know this guy can handle himself, but I know he's not going to do anything. And just the sheer dread, I found myself like fidgeting and getting all uptight, but I loved the movie. I thought it was great. And Jack Palance was just, what a bad guy. He's got these razor sharp cheekbones, and you just feel that he's like a walking death machine. Wonderful.
When it comes to newer films, I mean, for me, like 2019 was a great year for films. Obviously, we had 2020 where really, with COVID, we really didn't have that many in terms of the cinema, at least. Do you find that you're always going back to the older ones, and that as good as the newer ones are, never really surpassed the ones that have come before?
Yeah, I seem to be regressing in time. Like the newer ones don't seem to interest me as much as the earlier movies, where they seem to be more crafted and seem to be much more capable of telling like a coherent story without having to constantly cut or jump here or there or have so many special effects in them. And that's another thing that personally I'm not a fan of. I like practical effects. You know, the CG quite often can date. You know, sometimes it doesn't, but even still, like older movies, anything before 2000, I think I get real enjoyment out of. I find as well, it takes a number of viewings and years for a movie to settle. So when you're judging movies, like say your 2020 movies, you're like, that's not a good year. 5 years time, you might look back and go, oh, we had this and we had that, and that was really good and enjoyable. And I think it's that we're all too quick to judge movies immediately, when I think they need a period of time to really just level out to decide whether it was good or bad. You know, that all these snap decisions are snap decisions.